In this video, I am going to teach about poultry structure, how we can construct a very nice poultry house for our chickens, because most people have been asking me about constructing a structure. Now this is the video and this is our teaching today concerning that. Now when we are looking into a poultry structure, first and foremost, we are just beginners. I don't actually encourage people to construct what we call fancy structures. For what? Because you still have a way, you still have a very big journey ahead of you. So I do not actually encourage you guys to construct fancy houses, what we call, permanent, because when constructing these poultry houses, we have actually three types of poultry structures. One, we have what we call permanent structure. We also have what we call semi-permanent, and we also have temporary structure. Guys, to be honest with you, these birds really do not care about the poultry house. All they care is to have a shade, a shelter where they can be free from predators, free from diseases, whatever. But they don't care whether the structure is fancy or what. No, because these are not human beings. Human beings care about the houses we live in, because for us we want luxuries, we want fancy things. But actually animals or poultry do not care about the fancy of a structure. So if you are just a beginner, I don't actually encourage you to build permanent structure. For what? You are just spreading money when you are just a beginner and you don't know how things really are going to come up. So I always encourage you guys to go for temporary structure. Why? Temporary structure is very easy to construct and also it's cost friendly. So if you are just a beginner, please consider constructing a temporary structure. What is a temporary structure? In temporary structure, we only consider using what we call wood cut-offs or wood cut-offs. We also use timbers, poles, whatever things concerning just iron sheets. As simple as that. Only we use just local available materials to build our temporary houses. But most people build fancy houses using bricks, whatever, and at the end of the day they will not make any profit out of it. So a structure will not it's a liability for you guys. So we need to understand the difference between assets and liabilities on our farms. Assets and liabilities. So what is an asset? When it comes to construction, when it comes to our poultry. So guys, when we are constructing these poultry houses, we consider two things: liabilities and asset. When it comes to our farm, productivity side, the structure is not actually, it's a liability. Why? Because it takes money out of my pocket, whereas an asset is something that brings in money. So we are just considering which one brings in money. The structure will not bring in money to you, though you need it in the process of production. But the most important thing, what we consider most, are the chicks or the chicken, because the chicken is what brings in money on our farm. So when you are considering building these structures, always go with temporary structures. Yes, even if you build temporary structures, they can work, they can do a good job for you than building permanent structures, which will just take away money out of your pocket. Now, last time I calculated for you and I showed you how to calculate and know the population of chicken you are going to put into your poultry structure. Having known that, so having known the number of birds that you want to start with, maybe 500, maybe 200, whatever, any number of birds you want to start with, depending on the on your income or on your capital. So we have to consider how we can construct a poultry house, a standard poultry house, because a lot of people construct houses which are substandard, but you need to construct a structure which is on standard. And there are so many factors that we consider when we are constructing a poultry house. Yes, as I told you, that you must not go into a fancy poultry structure. You have to construct a very cheap poultry house structure for you, which can work for you in the long run, though it's not that expensive than injecting all the money in a structure which is not going to bring in it's not going to bring in any return. So these are the factors we consider. Factors to consider when building our poultry house, a standard poultry house. must fall under this factor Z. So whatever poultry house you construct which does not have this factor, just know you've just built something just like that. It's not, it's substandard, but these factors will consider whether your structure is standard or substandard, depending on any material you have used, whether you have used bricks, whether you have used, cement, whatever, or just offcuts and iron sheets. Number one, we consider aeration. Yes, aeration. Any standard structure must have aeration. What do I mean by aeration? It's what we call airflow. Air must flow in and air must flow out. That is what we call aeration. So any poultry structure which is on standard must have aeration. That is factor number one before you construct. Why? Because these birds, you put a lot of birds in the house, but if they don't have good aeration, that means they will suffocate, they will die, they will suffer from diseases. Yeah, because most farmers, your farms do not get rid out of diseases. Why? Because of the poor construction, poor aeration in your poultry houses. So make sure that aeration is good. Air must flow in, that is oxygen, and also carbon dioxide must flow out. Remember, these birds, they poo on the floor, and once they poo, that means a lot of ammonia, because their chicken droppings has a lot of ammonium gas. So when ammonia comes, when ammonia is too much in the poultry house, it causes what you call respiratory diseases. Your birds will develop flu, cough, those respiratory diseases. That's why we need too much airflow inside the poultry house. So this is actually, let's say like this is our poultry structure. This is our house. Now when we are building, we consider from here to down, it should be 4 feet. This one, maybe we just put iron sheets here or wood offcuts here, just covering the the lower part. It should be 4 meters. Then the rest from here upward, it should be 7 feet. Sorry, here it should be 4 feet, and going upward it should be 7 feet. But you should also make a V roof, not a one-sided roof. Just make sure that your roof it's in a V shape, what we call mwamba, but just make a V shape, not a one-sided roof. It will be helpful for you. Why do we make a V shape? Because when the weather is too hot, when the roof is very near to the ground, that means the house, it will have a lot of heat inside. But when the roof is on this side, that means aeration will be enough also. Now here it is 7 feet going upward. That means we shall have a distance between the roof and the floor, and we shall not experience heat stress in our birds. So here we just put wire mesh. Here you just have to put wire mesh. Yes, just around your structure you put a wire mesh. Now point number 2 to consider when constructing a poultry house, we have to consider our poultry house must face east to west direction. Yes, east to west direction. What do I mean? Most people don't know that when we are constructing a poultry house, we consider east to west direction. It is very important to consider east to west direction. Why? Because when we are in primary, they used to tell us that the sun rises from the east and the sun sets from the west. The sun rises from the east and the sun sets from the west. So the sun rises from the east and the sun sets from the west. That what does that mean, or what does that affect our construction? So let's assume this is our sun. This is the sun, and this is our poultry structure. So what do I mean by this factor that we must consider east to west direction? So when the sun rises from the east and sets in the west, let's say that the sun is now setting up, it's coming in the morning. This is west direction. The sun is coming now from the west. So no, let's say this is this is east, so this is west direction. Now, when we are constructing our structure, we must consider where does the sun comes from in the morning. So the sun comes in the east, in the west. The sun sets in the west in the morning. So you must consider that. Why? Because we don't want direct sunlight into our chicken house. You have to make sure that the sun does not, come direct into your poultry house. Why? Because if the sun comes direct into your structure, that means the birds will run away from the sun. It will be hot for them, so they will run away from the sun and go into corners. Once they pile into corners, they will suffocate and die. You will always get mortalities. Why? Because birds, whenever they feel danger or whenever they feel uncomfortability, they always run into dark corners. All of them will just pile in corners, and through piling in corners, they will suffocate and die. And you lose your birds for nothing. But what do we have to do? We have to always make sure that we construct our structure facing the what? Facing the eastern direction. Yes, where the sun rises. Why? Because when the sun comes in the morning, west here, when it comes in the morning, our structure will be facing in the east. Do you understand the logic behind? When the sun comes in the morning, that means if our structure is facing in the west, that means the whole sunrise will just come straight to our poultry house, and it's not what we want. We don't want direct sunlight into our poultry structure. That means when we are constructing our structure, we have to make sure that it faces in the east direction where the sun rises. So by the time the sun goes, what we call rises, when the sun rises in the east, our poultry house now will be facing in the west. That is the logic behind. Hope you understand what I mean. So that is also a factor to consider. Another factor we must consider when we are constructing our poultry house, we must consider free from predators. What do I mean by predators? Predators, these are, cats, dogs, whatever, all those things which eat our chicken. When they come into our chicken, they eat our chicken. So we must make sure that our structure is free from predators. How do we control predators? By using wire mesh. Yes, make sure that your structure has wire mesh, because it has two meshes. One is a wire mesh and another one is a chicken mesh. Chicken mesh prevents, these wild birds from entering our structure. Why? Because we don't want wild birds. They will bring diseases. So if you don't put a chicken mesh, that means birds will come because they will need to feed from the feeds, from the feeds inside our structure. So whenever these birds come, they bring diseases. Remember, these are wild birds. They don't care and they are resistant to diseases. But our chicken are not resistant to diseases. Whenever they will come, they will spread these diseases to our birds. So we need to make sure that we construct a very good structure with wire mesh and chicken mesh to prevent number one, predators, and also wild birds. Point number 1, 2, 3, 4. Point number 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So point number 4, we should also consider that our structure is well concreted. Concrete. Make sure that you have a concrete floor or plastered floor. Plaster, plastered floor. Why? Because if you don't put this concrete floor, birds love scratching around. You just make your structure, maybe it's it's not well cemented. It's just plain soil, and you just put maybe wood shavings and coffee husks. So that is very wrong. Why? Because whenever water pours inside, that means that the down part will always be wet, and it will give room to bacteria, which will later bring diseases to our birds. So make sure that the floor is always it's cemented. If not cemented, just use cement with soil with cement. It's very good. Just plaster it so that we don't give room to bacteria to multiply in our poultry house, because these birds will always pour water on the floor. Whenever they pour water, just take a scenario that we already have soil What could be the case? That means bacteria will have space to multiply and bring diseases like coccidiosis into our poultry birds. Another factor to consider when constructing our poultry house is what we call biosecurity. Biosecurity. What is biosecurity? I have been always, I've been singing this song about biosecurity. You cannot have a good structure without biosecurity. And you cannot have security on your farm without biosecurity. Biosecurity, these are measures that we put across on our farm so that we can prevent diseases from attacking our animals or our birds. Now, when it comes to biosecurity, when we are constructing these poultry structures, this is our structure. So this is the door or the entry. That means on the entry we put what we call footbath. So you need to put a footbath here at the entry. Yes, you either build it, when constructing, or you put a basin over there. So make sure that biosecurity is key and is there during construction. When you are constructing your poultry house, whether you are building permanent structure, make sure that a footbath is implemented there, because it is very important if you want to control the diseases. If you don't put biosecurity, that means chances are very high that your flock will be affected with diseases. So that one is important. Also, on biosecurity, make sure that your structure is well fenced. Put a fence across your structure. It is also one way of controlling these diseases on the farm. Because what we don't want is intruders or people from outside to come direct to our farm. Make sure that people do not have access to your poultry house. So put a fence around, even if it's in your home. Just put a fence around so that visitors don't go inside your poultry house. It is also one way of implementing proper biosecurity on your farm. Also, when we are constructing our poultry house, we should consider light. Make sure that light is enough. I have seen so many structures when they don't have enough light. You just build it flu. You just put the Hofkats flout. That means you don't have light. It will always be dark. But we want natural light inside. Natural. Even your houses, they have windows. How about these poultry structures? They will need more light compared to human beings. So birds need more light compared to us. So make sure that your house has enough natural light, not these bulbs, because we shall need bulbs at night. But during the day, it has to be, with natural light throughout. Because if you don't have natural light, that means even these laying birds, like these commercial layers, they will not give you eggs, because for them, their eyes are connected to the light, natural light. Whenever they receive that light from the outside environment, I don't know how it connects with their system, and they will lay much. But birds which do not have natural light, I assure you, they will not lay eggs to the expectation. So make sure that you consider that factor very well. Point number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Point number 8. Also, you must consider, putting in laying nets. Laying nets and patches. So these laying birds will need laying nests. Most farmers construct these structures and they don't put these laying nets. But birds will need privacy. Make sure that when you have your laying birds, make sure they have laying nests for them, because they will need privacy. And these laying nets, always put them in dark corners, because these birds will need privacy. Yes, but if you don't put laying nests, that means you always have damages. Your eggs will be damaged. Why? Because birds will just lay anywhere they find, they will lay from there, and you always find damaged eggs. Why do you experience that? Yet you can control it by putting laying nests inside your poultry structure. Also, patches. What do I mean by patches? Birds like flying over. Just put paws throughout your poultry house, so that whenever they want to swing, to practice their natural behaviors, it will be free for them. So they love, flying over, because birds love sleeping on these patches, because that is their way of behavior, natural behaviors. So last point is, make sure that your poultry house is well leveled or leveling. What do I mean by level? Make sure that your house is well leveled. Do not make it to be like when it's like slanting. because most people construct these houses on a hilly, hilly land, and it's slanting like this. Make sure that it is well leveled. You level it. Why? Because we have to put in coffee husks or wood shavings, and whenever you put in wood shavings, when the ground is not well leveled, that means the wood shavings will always be slanting from the other corner, and you find that one corner has no wood shavings, and it is very dangerous for our birds. So make sure that the floor is well leveled, it's on level. That is also one of the points to consider when constructing a poultry house. So guys, those are the factors you must consider when you are constructing a poultry house, and it will help you in the long run. So make sure that you follow them while you're constructing poultry house. See you in my next video. God bless you.